Hello, I'm Kayanne, and today I want to share with you this book that I got about that has the art of Tim Burton, and it is a fabulous book. And as I get ready to make some illustrations for October for my patrons and just some drawing in my sketchbook, I thought that I could use some inspiration from Tim Burton. So I just thought I would share this book with you. It has some biographical information here in it as well, but I have to admit my favorite part are his illustrations. And some of these are just from his sketchbook that maybe weren't even really intended to be seen or used. They were just ideas or things that he sketched up. Like, look at this face, the shape of his face here, the way he does the hair, and just the postures of the bodies. I think there's a lot to be learned from these. I'm not always a fan of the content or subject, I guess, but I am a fan of his creativity and expressiveness in his characters. Even with just a few simple lines, he expresses a lot. So I'm not a big, like, spooky or Halloween-y type person. I don't watch horror movies. They don't appeal to me. But again, the thing I do like are his creativity and sketches in here. So I do want to create some like friendly little monsters. And I think there's a lot that I can learn from him, like the shape of these eyes. Just how he did his eyes here is very effective. I like the childlike work. I think that has a definite appeal too. There's quite a few fold-outs in this book as well. These faces are fun. So I'm not going to go through the whole book. It's quite large. But I'm gonna go now and I'm gonna pick out a few things that I want to use as inspiration in my sketchbook. This is a page in my sketchbook, a spread that I had already started. And I have some drawings here that were inspired from another book of sketchbooks of some various graffiti artists. And I had some characters and styles that I was kind of looking at too as I was approaching this project. I'm just kind of trying to get into kind of the vibe of Tim Burton-esque art, or at least my version of that, kind of getting in the mood of the, the Halloween vibe, some kind of crazy characters, and some old trees that are with faces, things like that. And so I'm just kind of doodling in, trying to just kind of get in the groove of things with this page and just kind of having fun and playing with it. So that's what I'm doing with this, and I keep coming back to this page as I look at Tim Burton's work and adding a little bit more, and I'm actually ended up quite happy with this page, so it's coming along well. Okay, now I've kind of got myself in the mood, and so I'm going and doing some direct, not entirely copying or not trying to, make it exactly the same, just getting some of the way he makes his mouth or the hair or whatever, some of those details down a little bit. Here, like I'm just making note of those long limbs, those really thin body. Look that he has on some of his characters, and I'm just kind of going through and picking and choosing some of the things that kind of typify. So this is just for me to kind of reference for ideas. I'm using one of my favorite go-to sketching tools, and that's this mechanical pencil with blue lead. I like using mechanical pencils. I like the fine line, and I just like this soft blue color because I can go back and ink on top of it, and it pretty much disappears. It is also erasable, and so that's just something I use a lot as I'm sketching. I'm picking two of those faces that I really was intrigued by, that I really loved. This guy with the big bushy beard, and I made him have kind of a little braided ponytail. Again, I'm not trying to make it look exactly the same. I'm just getting some of those ideas down, the bushy eyebrows, the bushy beard, the shape of the head, things that I can kind of carry forward into some characters of my own. This other character with the little pointy chin and the receding chin, I think that's kind of a neat character too, and one that I'll do. I kind of had an idea back on this. His was a crescent moon character, and I made mine with a star head instead. Minor change, but the shape of the body and just the whole concept of the whimsicalness of it, I just kind of wanted to record. Here's my version of the guy with the receding chin and again, the hair. I didn't give mine the glasses, but otherwise he's fairly similar. So those two heads kind of got me to thinking about, as well as looking through his book, is that he is a variety of head shapes that he uses. He can take almost any shape and make it into a head and face, and it kind of reminded me of that little thing we used to do in grade school where somebody draws a blob and you turn the blob into something. So I just kind of randomly drew myself a bunch of blobs on the facing page, and then I'm going back and trying to make faces from them, and that's a good way to just come up with a really silly, whimsical face. So that's kind of fun. I was actually kind of surprised of how normal some of them looked, and of course how weird some of them looked as well. But that was kind of a fun little exercise, and thinking about, I get kind of locked into that a face has to be just one, certain shape to make the egg-shaped head, and really there's a big variety of shapes that can work for a head, with those two characters at the bottom of the facing page being a good example of that. I decided to outline the basic shapes that I was starting with for these faces with a red pencil so that it would be a little easier to be able to see what I was doing. I'm using this Schneider pen in 0.5 to do my inking. I really like this pen. It flows really smooth. It's like a rollerball pen, but the ink is permanent, so I can watercolor over it. And I have really enjoyed it for sketching purposes. For a bit of a dark and mysterious look in the background, I'm pulling out my Boku Undo watercolor paint pan set that has like kind of, I don't know, graphite tint, dark colored tints. I think it's supposed to be sort of like sumi ink maybe, but I really like the dark colors. This is the kind of violet or purplish color, and I think it gives a good spooky vibe to whatever it paints. Then I use a combination of colored pencil and watercolors to finish off these characters. I really like the look it gives to mix watercolor and colored pencil. It just adds a little more texture to the piece. Okay, I've been busy doing some doodling. Not necessarily everything like Tim Burton would do, but kind of influence, kind of getting in the mood with it. I really like how this page turns out. This character is kind of heavily influenced by Tim Burton. Maybe this one I could see him doing something like that too. I don't know if he did, but otherwise just kind of the flavor of the page. But I really like how this turned out. Just a bunch of doodles that kind of grew into each other, and I had already done this house, just kind of had the idea of some not haunted exactly, spooky houses. Some ideas for those. And so there's that page. Then I did just some other, like looking at how he does things, like focusing on details like eyes, or like this is his play on word. He had a similar illustration with a moon, a crescent moon for a head. I put a star, but I thought about, so often he has these things that are kind of a play on words, that I appreciate his humor, I guess. Sometimes it's like kind of awful, but you laugh anyway. Let me find the seeing eye dog. I also kind of like many of his faces have kind of a similar look, and hair. I kind of did my doodle head eyes on them, but it kind of gives the same feel. Okay, look at this. Blind man with permanent seeing eye dogs. That's like all kinds of things, but a little bit funny nevertheless. And so I just, this is not very clever, but this is a star with a basketball, and I call it a shooting star. Just that type of wordplay is something I would like to explore a little bit more, inspired by him. So that is one thing. Let me see if I can find these characters. Okay, and then this page, I looked at these two drawings and did, you know, kind of my own version of them. They are not the same. I wasn't trying to do an exact copy. I'm just kind of letting him influence and kind of give me ideas for some things I could do. There's obviously some differences here. But in looking at these and at his faces, like, look at this face. It's just like a triangle. The basic shape is a triangle. As I look at his faces, I think he can make a face out of any shape. You know, we kind of think of what a face shape should be. He can use anything for a face shape. So I did this, which is going back to grade school, but where you just have a random shapes and then turn it into a face. So some of these were weirder than others, but inspired by him. You know, I'm so rigid on what a face shape is, but actually there's a lot of shapes that can become faces. Like, look at this. It's just the faces on this little point here. Things that I don't think that way. The shape of this face here. So many of his faces are crazy shapes. You don't think should be able to be a face. So that's one thing that has me kind of rethinking or like broadening my idea of what a face shape is. Like, this shape can be a face, and this shape can be a face. Totally different shapes. So that was inspiring to me. Then on this page, it kind of turned into this deep thought. I didn't really set out intending for it to be, but, and I can't remember if there's, it seems like there would be like a monster eating another monster, or with a monster in its mouth. I can't remember if I saw that in here, but it feels like a very Tim Burton type of idea. But I took this little step further and just had, you know, inside of that monster's mouth is another and another. So just that idea. And then it got me to thinking more profoundly about how, you know, the cyclical nature of someone's hurt and they hurt someone else who in turn hurts the next in line, and so on down. And it just, I thought about, hurt people, that phrase, and just hurt people, hurt people, hurt people, and hurt people. It just keeps going, a cycle. And just that challenge to be the end of that. We don't, if someone hurts us, we don't have to retaliate, we don't have to pass it on, we don't have to go home, kick the dog, whatever. We can choose to put an end to it right there and not perpetuate that cycle. And so then, with that thought in mind, this initial culprit, or however you want to look at it, if you look close, he's actually inside of a mouth too. It's not immediately obvious, but there's an even bigger. So it's like people have reasons when they act hurtful to us. We don't know what their story has been. We can extend them a little grace and understanding, perhaps, and most importantly, not perpetuate that cycle. So, inspiration can lead us all kinds of places. So this is not where I intended to end up. I was just looking at his illustrations, but turned in this big thoughtful thing, and that can happen when we're inspired. This is another not at all Tim Burton style, but just first I drew a cat, and it was this little cutesy cat, and then I thought about, what's the cat sitting on? I thought about, I tried like a garbage can or some different things, didn't really suit me. And then I thought about this, let sleeping dogs lie, and so I thought it's laying on this sleeping dog, and it's got this pointed stick, and it, you just feel like any minute he's gonna this cat's gonna jab that sleeping dog who's just all peaceful, and he's gonna poke it, maybe a gentle poke, but whatever it takes to wake it up. And that just seemed fitting for what a cat might do. This was inspired from an artist, by an illustration by Eric Galcane from Italy. Might not be saying that right, but just that ideas of cardboard box. That was the cardboard box that made me add this cardboard box, which seems a little more Burton-esque, to this page, the Ghouls Night Out. So, one thing always leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So that's just how inspiration works, I think. So I've got only one page left in the sketchbook, so I'm going to see what else I can find in this Burton book, and to illustrate and ideas and get ideas started, and I'll be back when I've figured that out. pulling out these ink paints again to do a little background painting. One thing I noticed, as you can see in the book just underneath, is that Tim Burton often used these kind of loose watercolor washes in the background of his sketches. So I'm giving a little imitation of that. Of course, mine just never comes out looking the same. But I do love this color. This is the kind of, I don't know, teal green color of this ink set. And I just really like the color it gives, and it kind of fits the mood, I feel like, of these illustrations. Now I'm grabbing my regular watercolors and just going ahead and painting in these different images that I drew. The mushroom, as far as I know, I didn't see any of those that Tim Burton did, but the underside of the mushroom just looks like teeth to me all of a sudden, as I'm trying to think like Tim Burton. I also did this little guy with his mouth open eating a hamburger, and if you look close, there's a little pig inside between the buns, and I'm definitely getting myself into the Tim Burton feel of things. Not a big fan of Tim Burton films, like many are. I do find many of his illustrations or humor a little more grotesque than my taste, but I do really have to admire his creativity. I also think there is more value in studying someone with a different style than someone who is very similar to, the work that you do. So all that considered, I think there's a lot of value in looking at his work and seeing what aspects of it I can bring into my own. My spooky characters tend to be more cute and whimsical, and there's many ideas, like, while I would not make snakes with eyeballs coming out of eye sockets in my art, I might do this scripty little hair. I might do this kind of watercolor background. I might do some of the patterning, the sketchy look. There are other things that I might imitate. So as I have studied his work a bit and done some imitation and sketching of my own in it, here are some of the takeaways that I have from studying his work a little bit. One, even the weirdest ideas can warrant a place in my sketchbook, and that freedom of I see in his sketches of, like, there's no idea too outlandish, no need to even have a finished piece. Just that idea of jotting down sketches and ideas, I think that has a lot of value and encouragement even as I work in my own sketchbook. Also, as I was looking at his work and kind of imitating, or not even necessarily imitating the exact illustrations, but just kind of the flavor, the style, I realize how much you get in the groove, that creativity breeds more creativity. So just the act of working in your sketchbook and letting the ideas flow and putting even those weird ideas down, how much that increases the flow of creativity. So there's just more and more and more. But more specifically, there's some things, some notes that I kind of took from him. So one of the things was his checkerboard. He had like clothing that was checkerboard and like escaping the bounds that we would normally think of. And so that's something that I have not used much in my art. It's not a pattern that I go to a lot, but I do like the look of it, and that is something that I think maybe I might want to imitate a little bit more or bring into my own artwork. The scribble hair, I enjoy that. I think there's a time and place. There's certain characters where that just really fits to do that scribbly hair, and I think that's a kind of a fun look. So that's something I could see bringing in at least time to time. He often has these dark circles around the eyes. My take on that is bringing in my doodle head eyes, where I just have lots of squiggles around the eye. That kind of gives that same effect, kind of that dark circle around the eyes. I think that's something I maybe enjoy in my artwork. It makes kind of a haggard look, or a tired, or there's just a lot of feeling that can be conveyed in that. Another thing he has a lot, like everything is more extreme. So I'll often put a little bit red cheeks or red nose, but many of his illustrations have like an extremely red nose, especially, I noticed. And so that's something that maybe I could bring in at least time to time, would be appropriate in my own artwork. Also just the shapes of his heads, and he's so much more extreme in the variety of shapes. Most of my head shapes tend to be more just the classic oval or egg-shaped head, but how interesting are these characters where the head is a more unusual shape. So that's something that I think I could stand to play with a little bit more. His sense of humor, as far as, especially with puns, he uses a lot of work with puns, and that's something that I do also enjoy. I haven't really played with that so much in my illustrations, but I think it could be fun too. So I think that I might play around with that a little bit more. Like the checkerboard, there's other patterns that he uses a lot, like these kind of spirals and squiggles and things like that. He show up a lot in his artwork. So that's something, like I have my little go-to patterns that I do a lot, and it's like I think I could bring a little more variety into what I'm doing. So that is something also I think about. He uses the color red a lot, and more often than I would prefer. It's to represent blood, or something kind of gory, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm not going to go that direction in my art, but I do like kind of the look of, especially if you have a lot of black and white, that contrast of the red. He also, I kind of was looking at how he has these kind of washy, loose watercolor backgrounds. Like, he doesn't feel the need to paint carefully around every part. He just lets it just kind of loosely be there, at least in his sketches. And You know, that's something I think maybe it kind of makes the image stand out a little bit more. I think maybe that's something that I might think about doing a little bit more as well. When I do a watercolor wash behind something, I'm usually thinking I have to real carefully, you know, fill it in right up to the line and be real neat and tidy about it. And his look is to be a little bit looser with it, and I kind of like that. I might work on that a little bit. His long skinny limbs, not on obviously all of his, well, he does extreme body shapes, period, which can in itself communicate a lot. But these long skinny, like almost stick figure looking images for the bodies is kind of something I have not done. I might think about doing a little bit more. And of course the black and white stripes is something that I do, and I'm drawn to it in his work. I do enjoy the stripes. I enjoy the idea of his use of stripes, and so I think there's maybe more places. I think I could maybe expand that a little bit in my own artwork. Let's see what else. Okay, here's some more things. Again, the messy watercolor, the puns, the scribble hair, the spirals, the pattern with the stripes and checks and spirals and stuff, the extreme body shapes here. Like in the previous page I showed that, you know, long skinny stick figure type person. Here's one that's kind of the other extreme. The whole body is like this triangle shape, and it's kind of fun. So that's something I might think about here. The face is a triangle shape, and the body is also a triangle shape, and that, you know, gives a different look. Just everything is a little bit exaggerated, a little bit extreme, and you know, I think there's times that would be good to pull into my own artwork. His wide open eyes, I don't usually do eyes, it's just these little pinpoint, where the pupils are just these little pinpoints either, but it certainly gives it a look like, you know, there's that startled or afraid or fearful or anxious look about that. So I think that's something also. I also liked his little eyes with, let's see if I can show that up closer, with to do the lashes just all the way around. That's kind of a fun look. I've never thought to do that before. That's something I, you know, could pull into. Just being very whimsical, like the mouth shapes are all, he does some very wonky mouth shapes, and you know, that can communicate a lot. So there's just a lot of little things like that my art isn't going to look like his. I don't want it to look like his, but that I can benefit from and pull into my own artwork. So I'm going to go on and have some fun with that, and hope that you know, maybe helped you too. I have a whole stack of books that I would like to go through in this way, so tell me what you think. I'll be going through them anyway, so I'll probably want to share them with you, but let me know what you think of that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.